Hello everyone, what's up? It's me again, Junkmaster3, and yes, it's time for a new video. And like if you've seen the previous video that I uploaded, this is the quite opposite of that. So this is gonna be like 10 horror movies that I like or love that everyone else hates. Now, before I start with the list itself, or like not the list, but like the 10 movies in general, I realized this. I mean, I didn't realize it until I actually put all the films here on the table, but apparently most of these are actually like sequels, which yeah, I had no idea about that before. So yeah, just to keep that in mind when you watch this video. Maybe I should have just done like an exclusive like favorite horror sequels that everyone else hates. So yeah, but anyway, let's start off with the first one. And like usual, I'm starting with like the highest rated movie to the bottom lowest, like the lowest rated movie in general. So and like I said before, I either like or love these films. Just because I say that, it doesn't mean that I love all of these films. Of course, some of these films have problems, but I don't think the movies themselves are as bad as many people make it out them to be. So if that makes sense. So yeah. So number 10, we have not number 10, but yeah, the first movie, if you will, is the film Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, which came out in 1990, I believe. And this is apparently when this was released, I think this was the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie to be released that was not made in Texas. This was actually shot like somewhere like in California, I believe, and maybe that's the reason why some people really throw it off in a certain degree. Um, this actually comes with like an uncut version and a cut version. And yeah, why would you watch the cut version? You want to watch the uncut version, damn it. But yeah, that's just my complaint for the release itself. I think Leatherface is really cool looking in this one. I don't remember. I think it's what's his name? R.A. Mihailov. I can probably never pronounce his name. It was also been in Pumpkinhead 2, I believe, and he was in. I think he was in one of those Hatchet films as well, if I'm completely mistaken. But yeah, whatever. So he's Leatherface in this one. In this one, you also have Viggo Mortensen playing like the brother of Leatherface, basically like one of the brothers. Because there's actually, let's see, I think there's two, three. I think there's three brothers in total in this film. So it's a pretty large family in this one. And I really like the whole thing right here on the front cover as well. I like the Sawis family. That's actually something you see in the film itself as well. So I really like the look of this chainsaw as well. The storyline, I mean, when it comes to this series in general, the storyline is just very similar to like the other ones. The second one feels more like a weird, goofy type of feel to it, while this one has a more serious feel to it, but at the same time has some tongue-in-cheek type of moments in it as well. Actually, at one point, I was actually thinking of putting Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation on this list as well, because that's a film that I love to hate in a way, if that makes sense. But anyway, um, now the thing which I really like about this one is the character of Alfredo, I believe his name is, and he kind of like steals the entire show in this film because he has this specific type of look to him that he looks very like scary and really threatening to the point that he's almost more scary than Leatherface himself. So that character, I don't remember the actor's name though, but I thought his performance in this one was really really great, and that really scared me the first time I watched this one. Like, whoa, that's a really well put together like character right there. So he kind of takes away from Leatherface a little bit of one in this one. There's certain really entertaining like fight sequences towards the end as well, which is really fascinating and really cool to look at. And you also have Ken Foray in this one, who I also think did an amazing job as well. Yeah, I mean, if you do like any of the other like Texas Chainsaw Massacre films in general, go check this one out. But make sure you watch the uncut version because yeah, why would you watch the cut version? But yeah, I think that's the reason because that's a UK release, and yeah, that's how it goes sometimes with some of those older UK releases. And then the next one, we continue with the sequels right here. The next one is a film which has, by the way, Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 had a 5.5 stars on IMDb. The next one has 4.9, and this is yet another sequel, and it is Pet Cemetery 2 with Edward Furlong, and maybe that's the reason why I like it so much. And it also has a really entertaining performance by Clancy Brown, who plays like this guy, like the father of this kid right here on the front cover, and he is just really demented because, of course, like he gets into a specific type of accent in a way you can say, and yeah, he gets buried in the pet cemetery. You probably already know this if you already watched the first one. By the way, spoiler alert if you have not seen any of these films before. But yeah, I mean, I like this for what it is. It feels very different from the first one, the whole style and the whole like atmosphere to it, which is really strange because I mean this film was actually directed by the same director of the first one, Mary Lambert actually, which really threw me off because like it doesn't even feel like it's the same director that's involved in these films in general, because the first one is very different from this one. This one really, I mean, increases like everything when it comes to like the blood and gore and violence and all of that. The first one is, I would say, is probably more focused on like the characters, which I mean I do prefer. So I mean, if I had to pick a favorite out of those two, I'd definitely pick like the original one. But this one is still a very entertaining sequel as well, and it's basically about Edward Furlong's character. His mother is passing away like in some freak accident, like on a set of like a movie shoot or whatever, or like a movie set. I think that's what you say. And of course, he's depressed by this, and he gets into the school, and everyone's bullying him and stuff, and then things just escalate in general. And his father works with animals as well, so that kind of ties in with the whole like pet cemetery vibe to it. And I think his father's played by Anthony Edwards as well. So yeah, in general, really entertaining film. I mean, if you like the first one, you might not like this one as much. This feels very 90s as well. So if you like those like 90s horror films in general, I think you might like it. Also, I really love the soundtrack to actually both of those two films that I've already talked about. Because the Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 has a really cool metal song by Last Rocket, I believe their name is. And Pet Sematary 2 has lots and lots of really entertaining like music to it, as well, like a score or soundtrack. So yeah. And then the next one, this you can say is sort of like a sequel as well. This is part of like the Dead franchise, if you will. And it is George A. Romero's Survival of the Dead, which I believe was the last film that he directed before he passed away. I think it was planned he was going to make like some other zombie film called like Island of the Dead or something, which seems, I mean, that felt, I mean, I would have loved to see something like that, but unfortunately, he passed away before that ever happened. So, but anyway, this film though, I mean, I remember when I was younger, I looked into this. I saw this like in the video store back in the day when video stores were still like a thing. And I was thinking for myself, wait a minute, George Romero's making a new horror film? Oh, I need to check this one out. Of course, not one of the greatest. Not as good as Night of the Living Dead, not as good as most of the films in this franchise in general. But I would still say this is way, way better than Diary of the Dead. I just couldn't get into the whole like found footage vibe to that film. I can totally understand what they were trying to do with that film, because found footage was like really at its like at the top at that point when Diary of the Dead was released. So I've never been really that much into that genre in general. So I think Diary of the Dead is my least favorite out of all of these films. I would say this is almost as like on par with Land of the Living Dead. Land of the Living Dead? Land of the Dead, sorry. Land of the Dead I think is a little bit better than this one, but this one is still entertaining for what it is. I think the main reason why many people don't like this one, which I can totally understand people not liking this very much, because I think the CG in this one doesn't really look good, and it has aged pretty bad. Most of the other films that they've made before actually used like practical effects as much as they could. This one almost like it's just too much CG and like in general. But I like the storyline, and I like the characters for what they are, and like the whole atmosphere. Like they're like a post-apocalyptic type of deal with zombies in a way. Not post-apocalyptic, but you get what I mean. Survival of the Dead, I like this one. I've not seen it in quite a while though, so maybe if I rewatch it, I'm just gonna say, how could I like this film? So yeah. Then we have this one, which I would say kind of like I prefer over the first one, and it is it is Anacondas: The Hunt for the Blood Orchid, which once again this is a film that I saw on TV for the first time this was fairly new. When was this? 2004. I don't think I watched it 2004, but maybe like 2 or 3 years after this. And I remember that I really enjoyed this one. I thought some of the CG of course hasn't aged very well, but I always felt like the CG in this one looks better than the first one. But then maybe it's just my memory that is just really, really bad. But I always have a soft spot for some of these films where it has like a bunch of characters and they like shove them into like dangerous environments or like areas and whatever, and they have to survive and they're getting picked off one by one. I love that type of like survival-esque type of horror in general. So that's definitely something you get with this one. Like I said, the CG hasn't aged very well. That's like the biggest problem with this entire film. But it's basically about these people that they go out like in the jungles of, I think it's somewhere in Indonesia or like Borneo or somewhere. And of course they're gonna get the Blood Orchid, which have been told by them by some research development team that it's supposed to like help people not age or something. And I don't remember how they got that information from the get-go, but that's the reason why they head there, to get the orchid so they can get famous and rich, basically. So, but of course they get like troubles along the way with loads and loads of like attacks from these snakes, basically, in general. And yeah, I really enjoy this one. I think the acting is a little bit weird from time to time from different types of characters, but I mean, I think they were meant to be like that in general when I looked at this film in general. So, but yeah, really entertaining. It has some really funny humor in it as well from time to time. So yeah, I believe there's also really funny like looking. I think there's a funny reference to the first one in this one, even though they have almost like nothing to do with each other. But I would say if you liked the first one, and you might enjoy this one as well. But I would say I think most people are probably in agreement with me with this one. But I feel like this one was the last really good one. Not really good, but the last decent one, because Anacondas 3 and Anacondas 4. If you thought the CG in the first two ones were atrocious, prepare for part 3 and part 4, because I only remember a big CGI shitfest with those films, and to be fair. But yeah, I like the survival-esque type vibe to this one, and the environments, and yeah, the characters from time to time. So yeah, Anacondas, Down for the Blood Orchid. Now let's see here. Then we have this one, which this is almost like on par with the first one in my personal opinion. I mean, it's almost like a 50-50 split. Sometimes I prefer the original one, and sometimes I prefer this one. But it is the film, which I think this came out like 9 years after the first one, which is kind of insane. And I love the fact that it's also called like The Final Sacrifice. That's like a part of the title. But yeah, Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice, and you already know what happened with those. Made so many films after that. Once again, I think when it comes to this one and some of the other films right here on this list, not all of them, but most of these films, I think the reason why I like them so much is because it's sort of like a nostalgic value to me in a way. Like, I mean, I really like them because it reminds me of like when I was younger and stuff. And this, I think, Children of the Corn, the franchise, is what really like introduced me to horror in the first place. Maybe it was Friday the 13th. That could be the case. But Children of the Corn was another franchise that introduced me to horror pretty early. And I remember watching the first one on one of those movie channels back in the day, and I was just like, oh, this is really entertaining. I want to watch the rest. And I think they showed part 2 and part 3, and I'm not really sure if they showed like the rest of the films themselves, but I remember watching some of these like on the movie channel back in the day. And yeah, this one is pretty much like a continuation of the first one, where the children that survived the whole ordeal in the first one, they are pretty much like they're getting like on the bus to the next town, or like the neighboring town, and then like the nightmare continues because one of these kids that witnessed these things, he sort of like becomes like possessed by the spirit of he who walks behind the rose. So he's sort of like the new Isaac in a way. And I think he is probably like the best part about this entire film, and he's played by Ryan Bowman, who I've also had a few conversations with online, like on Facebook and stuff, and he's a really nice guy in general, so a really decent guy in general. So yeah, I mean, the storyline is not really very like unique or anything like that. It's just like a continuation, like the children are getting mad again, like crazy and stuff because of Mike, played by Ryan Bowman, who plays this new Isaac type of character. And of course you have this, not of course, but you have this hero character played by, what's his name? The character name is Danny. Yeah, Danny. And he's like sort of like has this bad relationship with like his father, I believe. So he's kind of like torn between his father and like these kids that are like kind of telling him like, you can't trust the adults. So I thought the storyline in this one is pretty entertaining as well and fascinating. And yeah, I like the soundtrack to this one as well. I'm not really sure. I think it depends on what type of version you watch as well, because I believe the American version of this has a different type of opening credits than this one. I've always screwed up with this particular like opening sequence because I believe there's like some weird song in the American version. And this one has a really nice soothing score, and sometimes you can sort of say that the soundtrack is almost too good to be in a film like this, in my personal opinion. But I still like the film for what it is. There has some really fun kills in it as well. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say, but yeah, Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice. So yeah. Then we have this one, and this one really qualifies into the so bad it's good type of category, because let's be honest, this is not a good film at all. This is a pretty shit film, to be fair. But I think this is one of those cases where it was meant to be shit from the get go, because these people, they made this film for only like, I think it even says here on the front cover somewhere, or like in the back somewhere. Yeah. Plus, this sucker was made for only $3,500. 3,500? Yeah, $3,500. So very, very low budget. Uh, and it is the film Thanksgiving, starring Turkey. Just the premise in itself is just really ridiculous. It's basically about this killer turkey going around killing people because they've awakened him, because he gets resurrected every like 501 years or something, which is just really weird. Yeah, this is just made to be. It just felt like the filmmakers themselves probably know what they were going in for when they made this film. This is a film you should watch with your friends and just have a laugh at it, just because of how stupid and ridiculous it is. Really funny dialogue, really like a dialogue that doesn't make any sense. There's like a specific scene where like these teenagers, they are supposed to go out like camping somewhere, and then their car crashes, or like there's something wrong with the car, and then they stop like somewhere like in the middle of the road somewhere, and some of these guys are like, well, we've got tents, let's party here tonight. I'm like, who comes up with this dialogue? I mean, the dialogue in this film is just really bad and really ridiculous, to the point that you just can't help but laugh at it. I mean, that's just how I feel with this one. So if you like So Bad It's Good type of films, go check this one out, and make sure you watch it with a couple of friends, and you'll laugh your asses off, I bet you. I love the front cover as well. Gobble gobble motherfucker. This cult classic now on DVD. The ultimate low budget experience, a killer turkey comedy / horror flick. And this one is actually quite. This actually happens in the film. Not the very first second, but I mean, yeah. I'm just gonna say. I'm not really sure if I can show you that. I don't think I can show you the back of this one. They made a sequel to this one, which actually was called Thanksgiving 3. And then you might ask yourself, where is Thanksgiving 2? Now, the whole joke about this is that this is the first film that skipped its own sequel. So the third one is about like some people trying to retrieve the lost living copy of Thanksgiving 2. Thanksgiving 3 is really bad. And then, I mean, it's not like a So Bad It's Good, it's just bad in general. Really bad looking puppeteering and really annoying characters in general. You could almost say the same thing with this one, but this one, it actually felt like they were just like having fun with it and like, oh, we made shit, this is fun, you know. You probably get what I mean. But anyway, Thanksgiving, yeah, one of those So Bad It's Good type of films. I really appreciate that one. And then we continue with another sequel, and it is this sequel I've never really understood why people get so mad about. Maybe it's just because people think that the storyline doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I would say that's what actually makes it somewhat fascinating to me. And it is Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, which I would say is way better than that Blair Witch that came out like in 2016 or something, which I thought was very forgettable and really like lackluster in general. The first one, of course, is the best one. You can't argue with that. I think also the reason why this is actually the only one which was not like a found footage style type of horror film, because the first film is like a found footage film like within this film, so it's sort of like played on the whole thing that these people are fans of the first one, and they go out like in the forest area to like look for evidence and stuff, and like try to find out what really happened and stuff. And of course they get really mad at each other and get really like confused and paranoid, and they don't really know who they can trust anymore. So they set up a bunch of cameras to try to figure out what's really happening. And some people have like memory loss as well, so they don't remember what they've like done like the previous night and stuff. So I think this is very fascinating as a film. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not an amazing film, but I remember when I watched this for the first time, I was like, wait a minute, what really happened there? I don't understand the ending. So I actually had to watch the film like 2 or 3 times, and then like when I watched it the third time, one of my friends were like, don't you understand the ending? It's like this. And then he told me what the whole ending was all about, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I kind of get it. So I think maybe this is a film you need to watch several times to fully appreciate it. I'm not really sure. That's actually usually the case when it comes to some of these films that you don't appreciate. You need to give them another shot and see if you like them the second time around. That's what I usually do with most films, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I thought the whole criticism to this film that people say, oh, this is not found footage, how can you even call it Blair Witch 2? But I mean, would you like to see the same film again? I mean, at least they tried something different with this film. That's what I would say, well, how I can defend this particular film. The acting is decent enough. and the soundtrack and the whole vibe to it is very strange and very early 2000s, which I really like as well. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this one, but yeah, don't go into this film expecting yet another like found footage style type of film. This is more like a weird continuation where the first film was like a not a film, but like people actually believe the first one was the film in this film, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's really weird, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy it for what it is. I know, I think the reason why I like it so much is because it's fascinating to analyze the entire film. Like some of these, like also like all this, some of these like behind the scenes actually makes you appreciate the film a little bit more. So yeah, I think it's a film that is very interesting to analyze. So that's the reason I really appreciate it. So yeah. Now let's see here. The next one is, I mean, I can already see people screaming at me right now, like, "How can you like this film?" And it is Silent Night, Deadly Night Part Two. Don't get me wrong, this is a terrible film. This goes into the same category as Thanksgiving, I would say, a so bad it's good type of film. Now, the biggest criticism for this film is really like the whole flashback footage to the first one, which is very similar to the first. I mean, it's pretty much like this first film, but you have like the narration of Ricky, played by Eric Freeman. And let me tell you, Eric Freeman is what really saves this film from being like complete garbage, in my personal opinion, because his performance is so hilarious and really like over the top that you just can't help but love him, or like his performance in this one. Um, Once again, this is like a film that I would say, if you haven't seen the first one in quite a while, you'll probably enjoy this one even more, because I mean, like I said before, there's so much flashback footage to the first one to the point that you could barely even call this a film. But all the footage with Eric Freeman really makes up for it, in my personal opinion, and like his narration of what really happened, and his eyebrows is just glorious. I laugh my ass off every time I see those eyebrows going up and down like that. And this is where that meme comes from, like the whole garbage day type of meme. Like you can see, like the original meme almost. Um, yeah, I mean, don't go into this expecting like a serious film. Go into this and expect like a really funny, so bad it's good type of film in general. Because Eric Freeman, he really hams it up in this film. It just feels like he kind of realized what type of film it was, and he was just like, oh, I'm just gonna do these weird like impressions and like weird dialogue and stuff. So yeah, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, of course, nowhere near as good as the first one, but it's a really funny, so bad it's good type of film if you try to ignore the whole like flashback footage thing. I know it's really weird to say just ignore that, but that's just, or watch this if you haven't seen the first one in quite a while. Watch this one and you kind of get two in one. Okay, if you're gonna hate me for the previous film I talked about, you're definitely gonna hate me for this one, and it is The Exorcist 2: The Heretic. Let me explain before you absolutely like demolish me on my entire channel. I understand why people don't like this film, because this is a complete disgrace to the first film. But then again, you have to acknowledge that the original Exorcist film is one of the best horror films of all time, so you have a lot of competition to like follow that up. And of course, there's also criticism about John Borman, who completely like ignored like stuff that I think it was kind of disrespectful for the original film, or like he talked like bullshit about the original one, and that's another reason why people don't like this one. This one goes into the same category as Blair Witch 2, which is, I would say, this is a film that is just fascinating to me and very interesting to analyze as to like what were they thinking, what's going to happen now. I mean, there's so many things that it's a difficult type of film trying to follow like the whole storyline, like what's really going on right here. And the whole Pazuzu thing and the whole like thing like that when she's like doing the whole dance thing, that is, I mean, some people would say that's just stupid and retarded. I find that to be more fascinating than annoying, because I mean, it just felt like she kind of took that whole thing from another culture to be able to get rid of Pazuzu in a way, because there's some like weird flashback things to something that we didn't see in the first one. Um, and Another reason why I like this film is because of the score by Ennio Morricone. I think the score to this one is absolutely beautiful, especially Reagan's theme. I think that is just really, really beautiful. And the opening credits with the whole weird cackling thing, which kind of sounds like a witch, I always thought that was very unsettling and really, really creepy. So the entire intro, like the first like 10 minutes, I would say, I think that's really creepy in general. I think Linda Blair's performance is a bit so-so from time to time in this film, but in general, I think she did a pretty good, decent job in general. Now, I believe this could be like just a rumor, but I heard somewhere that Richard Lynch, not Richard Lynch, what am I talking about? Richard Burton. Yeah, Richard Burton. Apparently, he had no idea what type of film he was shoved into, and he was apparently very, very, very like intoxicated throughout most of the making of this film. I'm not saying that as a positive thing, but I think that is kind of funny just because there's so many scenes in this film where he looks like he's so confused as to how did I end up here? How did I end up in this mess? Yeah, I totally understand why people don't like this film. I don't say that I love this film, but I like it because of the weird vibe to it and all the weird directions it went, and it's very interesting to analyze. Just like I said with Blair Witch 2. So yeah, the storyline makes almost no sense at all, but I think that's fascinating to try to analyze what they were thinking. So yeah, The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Now at number one, I think this is like, not number one, but the last one I'm going to talk about today. This is a more obscure film, I would say. This is another film that I saw back in the day, like on some of those movie channels. That's the main reason probably why I like it, because it has nostalgic value to me in general. So, and it is Death Tunnel. This film, I mean, this really goes into the whole like haunted house type of vibe to it, because this takes place like in the Waverly. What's it called? The Waver. I believe this was like made like in this like a real haunted mansion, not haunted mansion, but it's like an old hospital that is like supposed to be like one of the most haunted places in US in general, and they actually made a film in there, and I thought that was really cool. So it's a very sort of like a weird like haunted house type vibe to it with like ghosts. I mean, the whole introduction to the whole thing is pretty much like they say 5 girls, 5 floors, 5 hours, and then he says 5 ghosts. So they pretty much like have to figure out a way to escape from this, because apparently they also, it's supposed to be like some sort of like weird show from the get-go, because there's some like people that set up cameras and stuff throughout like this entire facility. But then some things go really wrong, and like the ghost kind of like takes over the entire like project, you could say. So I mean, it is kind of sheep for like, I mean, it's not a good film, but I think it's not as bad as many people make it out to be. I've seen way worse like haunted house or ghost films in general. The Presence is a film that I watched that I was just thought it was really, really bad, and there's another one called Apartment of the Dead or something. I'm not really sure. There was like some other like haunted house or like hospital type setting that was just really, really terrible. This one has a interesting type of style to it. I like the soundtrack. I would like the score is really like haunting in a way. Now the biggest complaint I have about this particular film is the acting from some of the characters. I don't remember the guy's name in this one. He's like the guy who sets up this entire like project in general, but he's kind of like so. 2 of the girls, I mean, like I said, there's 5 girls that are put into this like horrible situation, but 2 of the girls, they are pretty likable. They're probably the best characters in the entire film and the most likable ones. 2 of them are sort of like you don't get to know them very well, so you don't really care too much about their characters. But this character right here, Ashley, is the character's name. I don't remember the actress name. She was so obnoxious, and I thought her acting was just absolutely atrocious in general. I thought her acting was terrible. So that character, I mean, I can't really blame the actress all that much in general, because I just felt like maybe like the acting is bad, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the character is not very well written and very annoying, and yeah, some other character could have been much better in this one, in my personal opinion. That's what really draws it down for me. There's a really creepy looking creature in this one. I'm not going to spoil it, but that shows up from time to time, and I thought that whole makeup thing, or like with that creature, was really weird and really cool looking. Yeah, if you like ghost films in general, go check this one out. I prefer this one over any like paranormal activity film any day of the week. So yeah, Death Tunnel. Anyway, that's it for my 10 movies that I like or love that everyone else hates. Please leave a comment or two if you agree with these picks, or if you completely disagree and why you disagree. And if you like to leave some like video response. I know that's not a thing, that's a thing of the past, but I always like other people's opinions and try to like discuss films in general. I think that's really cool in general and really fun to see that. So yeah, and like I said before, this is just my personal opinion, so don't get absolutely mad at me for like if I picked any of these films and you said, well, this is, how can you like this film, you're a stupid retard. Well, that's your opinion. If you think I'm a retard, fine. But I mean, this is just my personal opinion, so yeah, would love to see like any of you guys is like lists and whatever. Now I completely lost track what I'm talking about, so I might as well just end this video before I'm already talked for 30 minutes. So anyway, I'm not really sure what the next video is going to be about. Maybe, yeah, top 5 of the month is probably going to be the next one. Top 5 of the month for the month of February. Next one, I have no real idea. Maybe I'll try to continue with like similar type of videos like this one, because it seems like they are the more popular ones on my channel, I believe. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this particular video, and yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.